We are streaming on Facebook.
Wow, you were fast. Fast.
Okay, so we have the topic of, just to give you a little heads up, even though we are live, the DOJ versus the NAR. I think we need to talk about that, even though we talked about it yesterday. The Dave and Dave Show, episode 1995. Topic today, DOJ versus NAR, industry change forever, and the new meaning of Thanksgiving. Let me scan some.
Mucho frio outside. I went outside to feed the cat. Ooh.
You don't have a cat.
Yeah, I have a stray that I've had for 6 months. I feed it every day.
You are one of a kind, my friend. So 1995, the year I graduated high school, my 25-year reunion is yet another casualty of the Rona.
My 50-year reunion was a casualty of coronavirus.
50. Wow.
They were setting it up 50 years from high school.
Wow.
And I graduated 3 years early because I was so smart. So that's why I'm.
Yeah. That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, the My Sharona. I was gonna take the girls back to Long Island and show them the beautiful place that I grew up. Just recently we did a Google Street View, and I was showing them, and I was like, man, it's like, felt like I was going back to elementary school when the hallway seemed smaller, right?
Memories all alone in the moonlight.
The most expensive listing in where we're from is like $500,000. I mean, it's like, oh, things have changed, my friends, right? So
It's all good memories.
all right, so everyone's probably on vacation. So we were wondering if we should even do this today. I do want to mention, because I know a lot of people watch it on the replay, this tremendous ruling with NAR. It seems like NAR is in the news a lot lately, because last week we were talking about the personal conduct policy, right?
Right.
And then this week we're talking about this NAR DOJ.
Which is a settlement of a lawsuit, right? Because the DOJ sued them.
Well, there's these lawsuits around. I'm probably not going to do it the justice that it needs, but there was this conversation around buyers feeling like they had to pay part of the commission of the home.
Right.
Now, a lot of people don't understand how real estate is done. And throughout the years, it's funny, we have to apologize for the sins of our past, right? The sins of our fathers. Not necessarily your sins, but that's how the saying goes, right? And NAR was a very exclusive, not exclusive like in the positive sense, but excluding group in the past, not the people who were present, whether it was excluding women or excluding different races. And it was a very tight-knit group of wanting to control the information. And the consumers were not protected as much as they are today. And transparency, I believe, should always be number one. We talk about this conversation about whether or not we should free the information. Old school realtors, old school associations don't want the information being freed. We talked about this yesterday, Pops. The more that is freed, I believe the cream rises to the crop, or
Top.
The cream of the crop rises to the top, because you have to earn it. There's no like little game of having to hide behind, right? So long story short, a lot of people don't understand how commissions are paid. To this day, there's the antitrust, it's not supposed to be this 6%, you got NAR people, God forbid you say a commission, they lose their mind. It's like a curse word. But unfortunately, that's what it's been considered in the past. When the reality is there is no set commission, right?
There is no set commission.
So that being said, the public does feed that back to realtors, right? They just assume. So commission is based on expertise and service, you name it, market, whether it's a buyer's market, seller's market, whatnot. Well, there was this argument around the buyer does not pay any commission. And the DOJ feels, I believe, and I'm paraphrasing that's misleading. So do you want to explain how commission works and then the proposal on how to change the disclosing of it?
So commission works, the seller pays a commission. It could vary, and half that or part of that commission, it not necessarily half, goes to the buyer's agent. And that commission is disclosed on the listing agreement, which us as realtors, if it isn't our listing, and you as the general public as a buyer does not get to see. Now with the new, I'll call it agreement, because it was agreement between DOJ and NAR, that commission that the buyer's agent gets will be disclosed on all public sites.
So listen, if you don't use realtors, obviously you pay less for the house and the seller doesn't have to pay a realtor. That's fine. But studies have shown when you sell it on your own on a FSBO, for sale by owner, you leave upwards to 12 to 20% of the value of your home on the table. So
especially in today's market.
The irony is that using a professional protects all parties even more so. Not to mention all the emotional parts of selling or buying, not to mention all the forms that protect you and the inspections and the request for repairs. Listen, one of the reasons why the irony is higher end houses and sellers have less of an issue using realtors is because they're more used to using accountants and attorneys, and they understand the value of having a professional involved in the deal. That being said, there's nothing against doing it on your own. Well, the proposal is this. You as a buyer will be able to see on all your syndication sites, Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, you name it, what your agent is getting paid on the transaction from a buyer standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Also, one of the things that is kind of hard for a listing, sellers. So sellers, let's say you do pay a 6% commission. You're signing a listing agreement. It could be very tricky on how to understand. It says, all right, I got to pay 6%. And if you don't know to ask, how much are you paying out to the buyer's agent? You don't know how much the listing agent's taking. So some listing agents may charge 7%, keep 5% to list the house and only offer 2%. If you're a seller and you're disclosed that and you're cool with that, great.
Everything is great is a secret word you said. Everything is great as long as it's disclosed. As long as you know that it's a 6-month listing, as long as you know what the commission is and what and how it's split, knowledge is the best. This will ensure if you look up your listing on Realtor.com, that listing will say how much the buyer agent is getting, And if you're paying 5%, 6%, 7%, and you see a 3, then you know that the listing agent is getting a certain amount of money. Basically, the whole reason for it was they said the buyer wanted and was fair if they had this information. So,
And saying that the buyer doesn't pay for it is disingenuous because it is tapped on top. That's the reality. It is part of.
well, it comes out of the seller's proceeds on your closing sheet.
And the more that comes out of the seller's proceeds, the less the seller is willing to negotiate.
Exactly. So indirectly, a tax is a tax, a bill is a bill, of course, everyone involved. But to that point, if the public is listening, the point that they've made that is not baloney is that a for sale, FSBO as we call it in the business, for sale by owner, we are so competitive, it's bidding above the listing price. There's people, 5, 6 people that may want your house. So if you take the commission versus the top money you should have got, oh my God. And then you have to, if you do it your own, most people have to hire an attorney to close it because they don't have the knowledge, the paperwork, or anything else. So in today's market where people are getting, I live in Red Rock Country Club, I am seeing prices that are insane. That I would say never are they going to get it, and the next day it's in escrow.
If you don't understand the trends of the market and what's going on, you're going to be. It's the saying of you're either at the table or on the menu, right? So the reality is, Jeff Lavelle, love that you watch, but he has 2 great points. We're going to have Jeff on here sometime, Jeff.
Yeah.
What always seemed crazy to me is that bad agents, inexperienced agents get paid the same as great experienced agents because commissions aren't negotiable on the buyer side. Yes, that is the way the cookie crumbles, my friend. But you do know buyer brokerage agreements, you can change that. It's just the way it is. So, but good point. And like I love to say to all of our agents, you got to go into a transaction assuming you're going to be doing a little bit of work of the other person's side, the other agents. You don't go in of obviously not going to negotiate, but if they send over a terrible offer, it's going to be hard to present. You're going to have to work with the other agent because they have a ready, willing, and able buyer. And unfortunately, if they ended up with a bad agent, you have to protect your seller, but also get a good offer there. And you have to help pull the whole deal through the mud and over the threshold if need be. But I agree with you, Jeff. But on the other end, I've been on the global committee, and I know they do real estate in other countries. And in France, for instance, there is no MLS. And in some countries, the buyer pays the buyer's agent to go find them a property. What happens then, if you don't offer a co-op, you're getting a lot of dual agencies, which I don't believe it doesn't help the consumer as much, right? The more competition, the better.
More competition. And Dave, it's a funny thing when it comes to this. I was telling you, I had 3 new agents come to me. And when I say new, I don't mean young. I mean new agents that had prior business. And you know what they said to me? All 3. They said, this real estate looks like it's so easy, and that you guys, not to insult you, because then now one of them, what do? You show houses, you sell them, you close, and you get big dollars. And they all 3 said to me in different ways, this stuff is hard. It's really hard to get it to the finish line and know all the stuff. And that is the difference of doing real estate and looking at real estate. It is a multi-process event to get it closed, from showing and appraisers and home inspections and forms and CC&Rs. It's not as easy as it looks.
Well, there's a difference. Where Jeff brings up a great point, and I bring it up all the time. There's a difference between a $99 an hour attorney and a $399 an hour attorney and a $799 an hour attorney. And you have to go with what works. But there are agents that are what I call door openers, right? And if you're a door opener, you basically are just opening up doors for people to see houses, and then you're not really giving a lot of experience or expert advice on what they should offer, how they should negotiate, and that customer service. There's a difference between a transactional, low value, transactional based agent versus a high value, trusted advisor. And the three major points that I believe determine what you should get, what you're worth, is experience, which is basically knowledge and expertise, customer service. Listen, you have to anticipate the needs of your client, bring them through, right? Keep everyone calm. And then negotiation skills. Those are the number one, two, and three that are the difference between, Joe Schmo. Anyone can put a home on the MLS and anyone can open a door. Are you getting that? Like, listen, if you back the street in this neighborhood with a guard gate versus this neighborhood with a regular gate in a different neighborhood, here are the pros and cons. Here is the schools. Here is the quality. You got to factor in everything and give them that deep local knowledge that not everybody has. And if you can't provide that, then it should be reflected in what you do. But Jeff is right. You do not control to a degree, but you can control. You can charge your clients above and beyond what the seller is offering. That being said, most buyers agents don't want to gut their buyers into paying more. What I love about this new rule is that buyers will be able to look and go, wow, on these listings, my agent's going to only get 1%. On these listings, my agent's going to get 2%. On these 8 listings, they're going to be able to see
Exactly.
themselves. So I'm not saying it's going to be a guilt thing, but if my client thinks that I'm worth it and we have an agreement and I'm going above and beyond, they're going to be able to see with their own eyes what I'm getting compensated, which to me, what's on the MLS, I think even the listing agent's commission should be shown. I think everything on the MLS full detail sheet for realtors to see should be flipped inside out and shown to the public. And
The only thing I would say I wouldn't show is the expiration date of the listing,
okay,
because then people may do bogus things to try to get the listing.
but they can't
It's
see that.
expiring. I'm going to
They can't-
pretend to show it. I'm going to
they-
go after it.
They
You know.
can't see that. They can't see that. Only
No,
we can.
you said everything. I'm saying that's the thing I don't think should be shown.
But
Everything else, show it.
no, but other agents can't see it.
No, I know. But you were saying, I think everything should be shown.
No. Even the agent remarks. If your client and you're a listing agent, your client says, listen, I want the public to know that we will entertain all offers and we're motivated. It should be on everywhere.
I agree.
Obviously it needs to be signed off by the seller that they're cool with that verbiage. But what are we hiding at this point? I don't understand. The information's free. It's that this dissemination of the information is where the what your value is. We all have access to the same numbers. We all have access to the same tools. We all have access to the same articles. It's just how are we filtering it and giving it to our clients? So that's part one of the change proposed, which we do anticipate going through.
Mhm.
Feedback. We got, hi Dave, missed a little. Good to see you. Jeff, Jillian, Jojo, Mr. Saz. We got a little Patchogue Medford shout out. Beautiful. I got a little Patchogue Medford over here. Hold on. Let's see. Oh,
For
yeah.
those of you who don't know, that's where I raised Dave.
Here's something interesting. Here is me. Right here. Look at that face. See that?
Faccia bella.
Here's something very interesting. You see this guy right here?
Mhm.
That is Captain Michael Murphy from
Oh,
the
the guy that was in the military and died.
Lone Survivor,
Right.
Captain Michael Murphy. For those of you who watched the movie, my high school is now named after him. Lieutenant, excuse me. So little thing. Hero. All right, let's continue. So let's see. An agent friend of mine in Washington State, where they started doing this 18 months ago, so he hasn't noticed a difference in buyer behavior and his business as usual. I agree, Robert. Bob, I think that this is going to seem different on the outset, but it's a long.
Well, we don't know the question, so.
He's basically saying that this has already happened in a market. One of his friends, I think this in another market where they're disclosing the buyer's co-op. Okay. The second one, which is super interesting, is that so a lot of people don't understand there's a difference between a real estate licensee that is a state license,
They have a license to sell.
right? Which you take a real estate test versus a realtor, which is a membership. Okay. You have to be a licensee to be a realtor. You do not need to be a realtor to be a licensee. For instance, people who do commercial business don't need the realtor status because that is residential sales and whatnot. They don't need access to the MLS. What is interesting is commercial, for the longest time, in my estimation, in my belief, they have been at a disadvantage because they didn't have a local association of realtors, a state association of realtors, and a national lobbying, things like that. They were kind of on their own wild, wild west. So what's interesting is you used to not be able to really be a residential realtor, a residential licensee without being a realtor. You didn't have access to the MLS. You didn't have access to open homes with a lockbox key. Now that's on your phone, you know, lockboxes. You didn't have the code of ethics protecting you and holding you to a standard, self-policing and arbitration, and all of the little goodies that come with being a realtor. Well, there's this ongoing conversation if this is a private club that isn't good for competition versus this is an amazing association that holds an industry accountable and helps consumers, right? So it's a debate that continues on. Well, part of this proposed ruling, Pops, is that if you're a non-realtor licensee,
So you have a license to do business, yeah.
but not a realtor, and you don't have access to lock boxes, the listing agent has to show the home and make it available to you. Now, it does not seem like a big change,
But it is.
but it is. Because the reality is this: if I have a listing and a commercial agent says to me, I have a buyer for your listing, can you let me in? I'm going to do it. It's in the best interest of my client, right? But some people don't. Like, for instance, if someone makes an offer, even if it isn't on local association forms, you still have to present
Still
it.
have to present it.
It's a harder transaction, but you still have to present it.
Mhm.
So the question is, and this is where Jeff made another great comment, is with the new requirements to cooperate with non-realtors, I want to know what we as realtor brokers have to do when a case of procuring cause pops up and the buyer's agent that closed the deal is a non-realtor and the broker claiming procuring cause is a realtor. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Run.
The reality is there'll be very little recourse. You'll have to sue outside of the association.
Right. Got to be in court with attorneys.
And will procuring cause even be an enforceable thing if you're not part of the association?
Yeah, because code of ethics and procuring cause is done by NAR, then your state association, then your local association. And when you're not a realtor, all those are thrown out. So to me, the answer is court, attorneys in court.
You know, the interesting, you're bringing some interesting things up. If most procuring cause, well, let me explain what procuring cause is. So clients, general public, don't do this. If you see a home with an agent and you start going through the process, finish the deal with the agent, unless they're just terrible, then go to another agent. But the reality is with procuring causes, if I showed a house to my buddy Eddie, and Eddie was ready to buy, and then he came across my father, and my father was like, hey, Eddie, if you dump Dave, I'll kick you back 1%, or I'll buy you a washer and dryer, which is illegal. Okay. Then I would then sue my father and say, you owe me the commission because Eddie was my client. But if we go to the real root of this, procuring cause situations only occur with two things. Either a client is dirty or an agent is not necessarily dirty, is not up to, what's the word I'm looking for? Inefficient, right? So either a client dumps their agent because they're not doing what they need to do, or the client dumps their agent because they think they can get some kind of financial benefit. That's really what it comes down to, Pops. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
So what it comes down to is, could we even do without procuring cause?
In reality now with procuring cause, unless there's obstacles like you're talking about, showing a home, and so many agents think I showed it, it's procuring cause. No, procuring cause is bringing about the transaction and meeting the minds. Now, if you find out I didn't do it by what you're saying because of kickbacks or benefits that you're trying to steer the person away, then it goes back to you. But if they aren't happy with you or they can't get to you, and this drives me crazy, I say to agents all the time, okay, you're going away to Thanksgiving for 5 days and your client wants to write an offer and you didn't set up an agent to take care of your business and they go to someone else, then you're negligent. You see, then you're setting yourself up to fail. So
then shame on you.
yeah, shame on you because you weren't available to do your job.
It's almost like, when us growing up, and me and my buddies, and we'd all meet a pretty girl and we called dibs, right? Because you didn't want to like compete for the same girl. It was like a bro code, right? Just because I went on a date with her doesn't mean she's mine forever. If she's not into me, then guess what? My buddy, I can't get in the way. Oh, I like her. I went on a date. No, right? So same thing here. If you're, it's kind of like being stuck with the first car salesman you see at the dealership. You're like, oh shit, I'm stuck with this guy. I just don't want to buy a car. I don't want to be with this guy. I'm sure there's someone better on the lot, right? You're stuck with him. And that shouldn't be the way it is with real estate agents. Like, interview agents, interview them. And, the best way to get one is from a friend that you respect and trust who has used a great realtor.
And
Don't
that's
go to
the number
Zillow.
one.
Zillow or any of these online things can be manipulated. It's kind of like Yelp. Good luck when I see only 5-star reviews by everyone who's ever worked in the restaurant and their brothers, sisters, cousins, uncles. I trust, rather than Yelp, than my father going, hey, listen, go try Mastriani's. It's amazing. Rather than me going on to Yelp and seeing up and down, right? I trust his opinion better than I do, because it gets confusing once you go online. So I know we're a little off topic here, but this is part of the greater conversation around what we're talking about, right? So let's bring it all the way back. Why Yelp is the devil? And there is
Yelp is the devil, I agree.
And so is DoorDash. No way to compel the non-realtor to arbitrate. So yes, completely. You know, but then how strong is our arbitration system? It's only as strong as the people who are on professional standards. If that's hit or miss, then more people would want to arbitrate outside of the association anyway. So that's why this really, if we're, this is where it all trickles down. If the NAR doesn't have high standards for who could be realtors, then that trickles down to then the quality of the people on arbitration is more of a lifetime achievement award versus if you're doing business and have you done it in a ethical manner, right? Because you got to know what's going on. But what I find more compelling than anything, and this is where I'm curious if anyone watching, is with these two changes, it is going to become infinitely easier to do residential real estate without being a realtor. And while I don't think we're going to see any significant changes going away from that in the near future,
Oh, neither do I.
it is leaving open quite a window for the opportunity. And then there's pros and cons connected to that.
Well, the old days also because MLS, you wouldn't have any exposure to it. But now that we have Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, and any way you could look at all of MLS with the general public, so could the real estate agent that isn't a member. And now they're even going to know the commission they're going to get. So yes, I agree. It will open it up.
Listen, one of my coaches always used to like to say, the strongest man or the strongest woman in any room is the one who has nothing to hide. And I do believe that this is the case here with NAR, the MLS, and the whole thing. The consumer should be protected, but unfortunately, their protection is based upon the quality of the agent that represents them, and that is all over the board. We talked about this internally at Urban Nest yesterday, but I said, if I magically was the president of NAR and I controlled the Congress of NAR, which is basically all the representatives from the states, I would do three things. Three things to make sure that NAR does not get blown up, and I think it would benefit everybody. One, I would nationalize the MLS.
Which so many people are terrified about.
And that is old dogmatic control issues from every region.
I agree.
You know, look how, for
We
instance,
have a national MLS already. It's called those same sites I just said to you.
it's Realtor.com, it's
Right.
it's Zillow, it's right. So,
Right.
but their information is not as strong as the people who actually input the data into the MLSs, which is the realtors that represent the sellers, right? And I'm all up for a healthy competition. I think Zillow would love this. I think Realtor.com would love this. This would be a win for the consumer and win for everybody. Just let that dog run, right? Nationalize the MLS, because then it's an even playing field. You know, the ability for me to look up all the information on a property in Laguna Beach without having to jump to another site and staying on the MLS would be super strong, right? And now there's going to be no difference, because now I can know what the co-op is, right? That's one step closer. And that's turning it inside out. And listen, there's a place for all these syndicators, super fair. And then it comes down to, do you want to search on the nationalized MLS if you're a consumer? Do you want to search on Zillow? Do you want to search on Realtor.com? Fair across the board. Okay, number one. Two, raise dues. You got play to pay, pay to play. Listen,
A lot don't like that. A lot of people don't like that.
here's the thing. Anything easy and not earned is not special. if the bar was simple, everyone would be an attorney, right? You have to set the bar higher. We're not looking to exclude anybody, but it can't be easier to be a realtor than it is to be a hairdresser. We agree on that?
And it is.
And then that's part 3, higher standards. Those 3 things, if committed to, ensure that the realtor in a transaction is not only protected for the future, but it's also earned. Because I think what sometimes they focus too much on is protecting a realtor inside of a transaction rather than protecting a quality realtor inside of a transaction. And I think that is a big distinction, because I don't want to be one of 1.5 million people.
Agreed.
Are you getting uncomfortable, or you're getting bored, or you just don't want to have the conversation?
No, I agree with that theory. I mean, numbers are great, whether it's in a company or whether it's in NAR. They love to say 1.4 realtors. Companies love to say I have 1,000 agents. But if they're not quality, ethical producing agents, it's just a number.
Hence why we capped our company at 500 agents, which is a huge number, but not huge compared to companies that have 1,100 or 1,500. That's just law of diminishing returns. We knew that at a certain point, you have to pivot, right?
Yep, and if you don't pivot, you get these big companies, national franchises, saying our training is second to none and this and that. And then we get the agents from these companies and they don't know how to do a transaction. And you say, wow, how did that happen? So I don't think the company you're with is the quality of the agent. I think it's the company that trained the agent how to do it legal, ethical, all those right things is the quality of the company. And then in turn, the quality of an agent.
Well, here's the other thing. So Jeff just brought up one interesting potential unintended consequence / ancillary situation. It is much easier now for, I don't know, 5 brokerages that are large in any market to say, you know what, I don't really like the way our local association is doing business. Let's do our own. Let's write up a charter. We'll write up our own Bill of Rights, and off we go, right? The irony of that is you're doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past, and
That's
you're just
yeah, like people, like brokerages that want to do their own MLS, their own, it's the same thing repeating itself. Let's correct and fix what we have and give more of a voice to everyone than try to bomb it and start again.
Yeah, but I don't think you could have it both ways.
I always have my cake and eat it.
You can't be everything to everyone.
No.
And that's what I think, that's what a lot of associations, the argument that I'd get into a battle with, I'm not going to call him out because I don't know if he'd want me to, but I get into battle with one of the other presidents. And I'd say, you're more focused on the quantity of the membership, and I'm more focusing on the quality of the membership. And the problem was, when we'd have these conversations in boardrooms, we were trying to cater to the lowest common denominator rather than the average. I'm not even trying to cater to the highest common denominator, because that's an outlier as well. You got outliers on both sides. But you got to at least raise the bar to an acceptable spot, or you're going to get pulled down. Just like you don't want to just take care of the outliers or the few that succeed as well. I mean, that's probably our issue in government in general. That's why everyone says you got to make sure the middle class is strong, right? The middle class of realtors needs to be strong. And that's where it should be catered to. And I don't believe that's the case.
Agreed.
So, Joe, Lapiana asked a great question. Do you think NAR brokerages will open to cater these non-realtor agents? I don't think they will now, Joe. Potentially someone will come out, maybe they'll watch this and they'll say, wow, you don't have to pay your couple of $1,000 tithe to the MLS and to the associations of local and state and national. And, there are already multiple non-MLS companies that are there for commercial and there for referrals and new homes and things like that. I mean,
But and not a member of NAR because you have to pay the dues and.
exactly. And he's saying, well, why would you want to?
Right. Well,
Now you
there's
can get away with it.
protections. I'll give you an example. We had an agent that did a transaction referral fee with another agent in a different state, and they refused to pay them. And I went through NAR, who then brought it to the local board through NAR, and we got our agent the money. If they were not NAR, almost similar to builders, there's nowhere for us to go if they're not a member of our association.
Well, there is somewhere to go.
Yeah, lawsuit.
And here's the irony. The
Mhm.
person that you used leveraged NAR against could have easily said, screw you. And maybe they would have said, take my realtor status. I don't care anymore. And what I'm saying is I'm being devil's advocate here, right? We had to do this at association. I think they had to go after somebody and they revoked their realtor status and the brokerage and whatnot. And the guy was able to still do real estate because he still was a Nevada state licensee. And he was
Right.
he was able to work completely around the system. And all I got to do is hire Dave Sanders as a full-time attorney and let him attack everybody who doesn't pay up.
Mhm.
And say, my coffers are pretty big. Do you want to wait it out? Which is a shame too, because that means whoever's got more money is going to win a lot of these lawsuits.
Yeah, and I hate that.
Which is unfair as well, right? I'm a big fan of the Hunger Games, right? I don't know if you guys, the books are, of course, are better than the movies. They always are. But if you've seen it, I don't want to give it away. But at the end, the main character, Katniss, has a chance to put away the
The big
original.
enemy.
What?
The big enemy.
The big enemy.
Mhm.
Well, she's aiming for this basically public execution. Like, let's say she's aiming at NAR. But then she realizes in the last minute that the new institution that's taking over is just as bad. And they've become the actual thing they were fighting against. And she just raises her arrow, boom, and shoots the new one. And I think that's where I agree with you, Pops, because I remember back in 2000, and, I don't know, when did you get on the board? 10, 11?
10.
And there was some stuff going down, and I was like, why don't you just burn the thing to the ground? And you were like, it's easier to fix it than burn it down. And what we talked about yesterday, these huge bureaucratic institutions that start off so good, and they're, whether it's a government, a religion, an association, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the original founders of the religion, the Code of Ethics in NAR, they're so good, but then they get bastardized.
And it's up to the president. In our years, you and I felt we left it a better place than we started. We did everything for the good of the agent rather than good ourselves. So even year to year, it's the person that's at the helm of the ship that's going to make that ship go straight on or curve to benefit them.
Well, that's the problem. If you get too big, you become so big that you are the Titanic. And the reality is that it's really difficult to move an institution that big quickly, unless someone's willing to do something bold and have the courage to fail and take risks rather than be reactionary. And that's hard. There's so many things at play. I mean, I'm reading Obama's book right now, and whether it was Trump or Biden, you come in, you can't move this whole institution. It just doesn't change overnight. Nothing's going to change 2021 about the pandemic or the government. It's incremental change. And that's the shame of it. On one respect is when you need to move, it's hard. These three bold decisions should not be difficult to do. But the reason why, when they have these conversations behind closed doors, I'm assuming they're like, if we try to make it a national MLS, they may break off and do their own thing, and we may lose members. And the preservation of rather than be like, if we nationalize the MLS, we're going to get so much buy-in that the people that break off are going to be at a huge disadvantage. Whatever happened to having some fucking sand in the game and going for it, right?
I think that people underestimate the intelligence of other agents and fear of it, or fear of what's going to happen. If we do A, is B going to be a disaster? So I think that this is what happened will work out in our benefit for everyone, for the consumer, for the agent. I think it's a great thing. Stop. I'm looking at the back of your ears.
Listen, public, private. We can control private here, or excuse me, public, whatever. This is our company. And I will bet on us, regardless of what the changes are made in the future, right? Whether it's huge venture capital, Wall Street backed real estate companies that don't have to make a profit that we're going to have to compete against, or changes on how you search. I think at the end of the day, if you carve out your niche on relationship-based business, you're always going to be able to serve the amount that you need to serve to be successful and to make a difference, make an impact. That being said, it could be better for everybody. Or maybe we need this. Maybe we need an enema. Maybe the whole thing has to blow up and we just need to watch it and do what we have to do.
I agree.
Regardless, my friends, very interesting things going on at NAR. What I would do, even though I'm glad I'm not in, to be part of these conversations on what last week we talked about, what you could say online, you will lose your realtor status, versus now what you have to be transparent about. I do believe we're going in the right direction.
There's changing. No more hate speech for people that aren't on last week. Realtors cannot.
Remember what I said in 2017? Change is coming. Nope. And you know the shit I got from the current, not Wendy, the CEO at the time. There was a meeting just because no one was happy the fact that I said change is coming. That is not the way to go.
Those are the old days.
Let's get it spicy. But there's a window pops, and this window, or let's say this is a vacuum. And when a vacuum exists in whether leadership, innovation, or just noise, somebody fills it eventually. So you cannot just walk away and expect that vacuum to just exist. Eventually, someone's going to fill that space. My curiosity is NAR going to step up and take some bold action and fill it? Or is somebody else like Zillow or Compass or whatever, are they going to fill it? To be seen, to be determined.
If ever I feel that NAR is going to step up after this last year and then last 3 months of all these decisions, I feel they're ready to do that and move on to stepping up to bigger and greater things for all. I do have that.
And as we're watching this, I get an NAR apologizes for past practices.
Right.
Basically for racism. Very interesting.
Yeah, Charlie Oppler, who is the president, said a whole speech apologizing for bad behavior.
I mean, interesting times.
Not him.
Of course.
But NAR's past. Yeah, it's good. The
It is.
person that can't apologize or say they were wrong or look at change is not someone I want to be around.
Listen, we have this conversation about and every week. A-N-D, capital A-N-D versus capital O-R. And you can be an American exceptionalist and love your country and be the most patriotic person in the world, and you can apologize for the atrocities that have happened in the past.
Mhm.
When you're apologizing to Native Americans and African Americans and, everybody in life, you and me included, have things that they've done that they're not proud of. You can apologize and move on. Simple as that. So beautiful.
Great
All right.
segue into Thanksgiving.
So I said the new meaning of Thanksgiving. Speaking of Native Americans and pilgrims and the slaughtering of and the manifest destiny and the Louisiana Purchase, again, there are people who say, let's not celebrate Thanksgiving and let's get rid of Christopher Columbus. Then there's people who say, well, let's, it's part of our history and we shouldn't get rid of it. Listen, I think they're both right and they're both wrong. I think we need to be, the first thing is to be truthful about our past, learn from it, and then redefine it. And if I'm redefining Thanksgiving this isn't about, pilgrims and Indians or Native Americans. This is about truly being grateful, gratitude.
I agree. It's also tradition. It's
Exactly.
about certain amount of, like, I'm cooking for you tonight because we have decided as a family not to see each other because of COVID. But it doesn't mean that the tradition of food is an Italian tradition. It's very Italian. Can't be celebrated. It doesn't mean we can't be thankful for each other and everyone around us that we want to be. So 2020 is going to be a very different year. And I think, what did you say the song is? Party Like It's 1995? Is that the song, or I have the words wrong again?
It's party like it's 1999.
Oh, okay. Well, next year with the COVID vaccine and hopefully ending, I think everyone's going to party like it's 1999 and enjoy our life and go out again. And I think that's going to include family celebration, friend celebrations, trips away. And I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving and a safe Thanksgiving. And I hope we all are healthy come New Year and hopefully work our way out of this. Fortunately for us, real estate is an essential service, and us as realtors, we're very lucky we get to work.
Yeah. I'm not going to be judging McJudge there on this. I am going to say that Angie and I had a very sobering conversation about holidays and yesterday, and it's definitely starting to weigh on her. We do have two friends, or one couple that is has the same exact take on this as us, right? And I think that's what people are finding, right? They have friends, their comfort level is the same as the comfort level of their friends. So we have, two people coming over. But even then, it's hard. It's really hard. And it's, we almost cracked, we have a 1 month old, and that's a super different game for us. I read an article today about that Hashimoto's or that whatever that happens with kids, and it freaked me out. I vacillate between, like, let me go run naked in the streets with my friends and let's open this up completely, versus I'm going into my home for 10 weeks, right? Like, I think a lot of people go back and forth, whether they want to admit it or not. I think they go back and forth, because even the people who are living completely open lives and saying whatever happens, happens, when it does hit them, they get a little bit of a different
Perspective.
Because there's always what if. This is a debate I could argue both sides of. So I don't know if there's really wrong answers. I think, though, that love, empathy, and understanding and education are definitely things that we need more of, not less. But it's hard. I do recommend Zoom. You know, I know a lot of you this won't apply to, but having a drink with friends on Zoom, I just lost them. Having a drink with friends on Zoom and is actually not as bad as you'd think. It is a nice connection. So if you are staying home, definitely do that. If you're not, be safe. You know, just because you're out and about doesn't mean that you don't that you shouldn't just, you know, try to be safe. And you know, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. Hopefully this doesn't offend people, but
I'll do a uh-oh.
keep in mind that even though it doesn't affect the overwhelming majority of us, that when we are spreading it around and it's not affecting, let's say 99% of us, we are a little bit complicit in the 1% that do get it and have bad outcomes. So even if it's just something simple as a common courtesy, be smart. That's all. Regardless of what your political beliefs, regardless of what your health beliefs are, I do believe, because even if you don't, and that's okay, everyone has their right, it's still preventing large institutions from feeling comfortable from opening up. It's still hurting our economy. It's people still are dying. However you want to square that circle, good luck.
Well, reality is a beautiful thing. I watched TV the other day, and Reno, which is our state, to me as a state president and an RVP, it's part of my family. And when 20 people were in a parking garage in beds for COVID yesterday, that really upset me. So any good advice, I believe everyone has to live their life. I don't like when people say, stop being a chicken and afraid to live. And I also don't like when people condemn the people that make the decision to do certain things. But what I do believe in is reality, and reality is what is going on. So I agree what you just said. Some people die. So just be careful. Be careful on what you choose.
It's as simple as this, Dad. If you're the president of the United States of your own family, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's your number one responsibility to your family?
To keep them safe and healthy.
Then what's your number two responsibility to your family?
What?
Part of that is to make money and keep them have a great life, right?
Right.
So when we have the conversations at Urban Nest, let's say somebody gets, because every single company has had people have COVID or whatnot, right?
Oh, we've had brokers all over town. And the interesting thing is no one's saying it.
Yeah, it's definitely under the radar.
It's an under the radar thing.
They're getting treated like a leper, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which again, that's unfair too. But my number one thing, like if I'm looking at my staff or my family, my number one thing is that they don't get hurt under my watch. My number two thing is they don't get hurt by not making money, because that's part of the game. Even if it's 1A and 1B, that's where I'll go. So I know it's hard. I know we want to look the other way. I know we want to rationalize, and I have such great friends who think differently, and I miss them and they miss me. And I'm not judging, but just be safe, please. And I'm not saying this as political. I'm saying it is because I love you. I love you. I love you as my friends. I love you as my colleagues. I love my family. I love my city. I love you. So please, I worry about you. It's just simple. This isn't like, I think we need to reframe this argument, Dad. Don't you agree? This isn't like, screw you, you Nazi. No,
Right.
This is, I love you. Just be careful. As simple as saying to your daughter or son or your wife or your husband when they walk out the door, I love you. Put your seatbelt on. I love you. Have fun. Be careful.
Be safe.
As simple as that. I love you. So That's the only way I can take it, rather than people getting triggered both ways. I love you, I care, be careful. Simple as that. Is that a good way to end it?
That is it. Happy Thanksgiving. Eat plenty of turkey.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.